you have major scales. You have what we call the jazz melodic minor scale, which is constructed like a major scale of the flatted thirds. So 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The harmonic minor scale, which is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, and natural 7. So when I'm saying those numbers, I'm talking about the actual intervals, a major second, a minor third, a perfect fourth, so on and so forth. So we have these three scales, which I call the parental scales. And the reason why I call them that is because they give birth to the modes. So from these three scales, mastering these three scales really well, you're going to have 7 modes from each of these scales. So from these three scales, you actually get 21 scales. So 3 scales equal 21. So, but if you learn, as I'll try to explain, if you learn just the basic parental forms on the fretboard, then later on you can deconstruct them intellectually and talk about how you're going to apply them. So you have those 3 scales, then you have the blues and pentatonic scales, and then we have 2 symmetrical scales, which are the whole tone scale and the symmetrical diminished scale. And they're called symmetrical scales because the way they're constructed is even. For instance, the whole tone are all whole steps, so you can even, on the guitar, it's easy to see, I could play the whole tone scale, just like that. There's all whole steps. Or I play it in position. And the diminished scale is either constructed whole, half, or half whole. So if I went whole, half, whole, half, whole, half. So it's easy to see on the guitar from that perspective, or if we put it into playing it across the fretboard. So those are the 2 symmetrical scales. But for right now, I want to talk about, just start with the major scales. Hopefully you have this PDF that's called the 12-key grip. And that's, I think this idea of the 12-key grip is the most fundamental process to go through in order to, A, just master the fretboard, but also to be able to start to play jazz tunes. Because in playing jazz, we have harmony. Like, for instance, the song Along Came Betty, it's changing keys every bar. So to be able to be fluent and comfortable and in control of your ideas, you need to be fluent in all 12 keys. Now, the way that I have these scales organized, there are 7 fingerings for them. And it's my opinion that if you have a variation on the fingering, it's not really a big issue. As long as whatever fingerings that you do use and construct for your scales is that you are consistent with them and you always play them that way. Because in playing, if I think about this scale, I'm going to play for you a G major scale. When I'm playing this, it's really muscle memory that's working. I think about the scale and I play it, but I'm not thinking about my fingerings at this point after many years of doing this. But at one time, I did practice these scales excruciatingly slow in order to train the muscles where to go. And you know, when you see people that have great technique or play very fluently, that's what's going on. You're seeing muscle memory in action. So my opinion about it, if you have different fingerings for the scales, stick to them. Just be consistent in what you practice. That's the most important thing in terms of building a foundation of your technique. So anyway, these are basically the scales, fingerings that are used in the Berkley method, the William Levitt, and basically the Aaron Shearer method, which is sort of the classical pedagogy for classical guitar. So I have them organized into, you have a root on your 6th string, on your 5th string, or your 4th string. And you can start the scale with either 1, 2, or 4. And the reason why you never start a scale with your 3rd finger is because this is a weak connection here between these 2 fingers. On everybody's hands, even, you know, a developed hand or an undeveloped hand. So we never really start a scale with your 3rd finger because it really gives you nowhere to move from. You don't have anywhere to stretch. But if I have my 1st finger, I can do a stretch. 2nd finger, I can stretch. And for my 4th finger, I can stretch. A lot easier in terms of just how your hand works. So you either start with 1, 2, or 4 with these scales. So I'm just going to play through them through each string group just to review the fingerings for you and play along, and so you can have them to see. Let's say we do this in the key of A, just saying. So if I were to do root on 6, starting with my first finger in the key of A, so I'm on the 5th string, and I finger these 1, 2, 4 when I start, instead of going 1, 3, 4. I think this is important too in terms of developing your technique and your grip, so to speak. So we have root on 6, starting on 1. Then we can play the same scale, starting from your 2nd finger on the same root. And also the 7th degree of that scale is included in there. So this is 2 on 6. So 2nd finger on the root on the 6th string. And again, you'll see in terms of just technique, I want to keep everything in that box, in that nice position there. It's more economic. So these are things, again, you practice slow and just develop that way that you're going to approach with your left hand. Then you can start the scale with your 4th finger, and so you have La, Ti, Do, or 6, 7, 1. And that's sort of another point to bring up. When I'm playing through these, I'm very aware of how each degree of the scale is functioning. For instance, so I'm talking about intervallically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Also, too, if you're fluent in solfege, you could think of them do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's all good. Whatever feels comfortable to you. And the reason why I bring that up is because, as I said, there's 3 parental scales. If you really just work on learning the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if now I want to go on and learn my jazz melodic minor scale, all I have to do is flat the 3rd degree. So I believe a lot in building on things and building a solid foundation of your house. So if this is my major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, and I want to find out the fingering for jazz melodic minor, 4 on 6, 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, flat 3, 6, 7, 1. So once you know how these formulas work, you can just develop these. And again, it's important to be fluent in those at least 3 parental scales. So we'll get back to that. So we have 1 on 6, 2 on 6, and 4 on 6 for major scale fingerings. And then say I did the key of D on the 5th string. So again, we have 1 on 5. And you can see I keep my hand, try to limit the motion of my hands aren't flying around or moving this way or that. I try to keep them within, really, it's a 4-fret box, and I'm stretching out is with my first finger. Again, I was talking about with the mechanisms of your hand, this can stretch a lot than that. So if I have this box here, I can move like that. So D major 1 on 5. Or if I put my 2nd finger there, 2 on 5. Stretch for the G note in that scale. Still, I'm thinking of this being my 4-note box and stretching out and coming back in. Then we have 4 on 5, and this just sits right under your hand very nicely. Again, I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4. And then the last fingering, the 7th fingering, is 1 on 4. This is sort of the missing link fingering. Say we did the key of G here. So there's a G on my 4th string. So this is the last fingering on the page, 1 on 4. listen to students, people have variations on the fingering. That's not really the issue that worries me. What worries me is that you keep it consistent. Again, everything we do is muscle memory. When I'm playing, when I'm soloing, when I'm practicing, it's something that's programmed into my hand. There's no thought involved in terms of, let's put it this way, you never go see Pat Metheny play and he's like, where's F? It's just, he's way beyond thinking that. It's all in here. It's just something that you turn on and it moves. But in order to get to that, you have to practice really slow. And I'm a firm believer in the key to playing fast is to practice slow. And one semester I was at Berkley, I was just obsessed with practicing all my scales, quarter notes at 40 on the metronome, which just go to your metronome, turn it on to 40, and try to play all your scales that slow. For hours, I would practice like this. And I have to say that one semester, I think I improved on the guitar technically more in 3 months than I had in many years, because I was developing this muscle memory, and I also was really developing a sound on the instrument, and how do I develop my touch and my feel for the instrument. So I wouldn't overlook trying to rush into these. Take your time and just really get them right, and then everything will come from there.